In this episode, minimum wage, is that the answer to the problems in EMS?
This is Medic Life, a weekly video podcast for EMS professionals, bringing you real-world knowledge about today's EMS with your host, John Newton.
Lifers, it's time for your weekly dose of Medic Life, where we delve into everyday topics in EMS. I'm your host, John Newton, and this week I'm here talking with the GT Medic about EMS minimum wage. Yes, the GT Medic is in the house this week. Guys, if this is your first time watching or listening, thanks for coming. Jeremy, the GT Medic, finally got you on the show, man. Welcome.
Thanks, man. How you doing?
Doing all right. So, how you been, man?
Same, another day, another dime, right? That's what we're here to talk about anyway, right?
Yeah. So, you finally actually got to get on the show in person, and, man, so the article came out on February the 1st. It was posted up in a couple of different places. Federally mandated minimum wage for emergency medical technicians and paramedics.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
I've been in EMS for 16 years now, and believe me, I would love more money just like the next person. The reality of it is the money doesn't grow on trees, and
you don't want to do this for free, man.
Well, and you know what the reality of it was? When I was younger, I did do it for free. I actually started out as a volunteer, and I have the utmost respect for volunteers, and
I do too. I really do.
And the county that I came from is still. The BLS providers in that county are still at probably 90% volunteer. The problem is when you have sort of mixed, more evenly mixed, 50-50 or whatever, you have these volunteers that are willing to do it for free, and they're doing it for all the right reasons as far as I'm concerned. But if I'm an employer and I have 50% of my staff that's willing to do it for free, I have no incentive to actually pay people a better wage, And, there's a lot of other issues involved there, too. And I'm not saying that volunteers are the only thing that are bringing down EMS and certainly public safety wages. The other major issue that, for example, that the fire service and law enforcement don't necessarily have to deal with is reimbursement rates for Medicare and Medicaid. That's a significant, most ambulance providers, whether regardless of their size, automatically take a 40% hit right off the top of billable services.
So let's do this. Let's take a step back, and I'm not going to ask you if you watched the previous episodes, but the last couple of episodes, I've been talking with some folks about education and EMS, and we've posted up in a couple of different forums and kind of got the debate going about education and EMS. And one of the things that I see from everybody, and everybody's comment is well, education's not going to make a difference in pay. So I don't know. What do you think? Do you think that we would have a better leg to stand on, if you will, by asking for a quote-unquote, and I hate to say minimum wage, but some kind of mandated, unified number that signifies that, yes, in fact, we are considered professionals, and this is based off of education, kind of like nurses did. It's pretty universal. If you start out somewhere, that you're going to make X amount of dollars, kind of depending on where you live, as a nurse. Do you think that that's a good way? Education is a good way to go with that?
Well, let me touch on that last point you just made there. It does make a difference on where you live. I live in the Philadelphia area, and a graduate nurse, for example, in the Philadelphia area is probably going to make significantly more than, say, in San Antonio, Texas, where I used to live, where the cost of living is significantly lower.
Do you actually know what the starting nurses make there?
I do not off the top of my head, and I honestly didn't look it up like Salary Finder or anything like that, but
Well, I will
it's
tell you this from a personal experience. So my wife, who is a nurse and has been for many years, and was in EMS for several years. As a matter of fact, she and I even rode together. And that's always fun, riding with your spouse. Hey, turn left there, honey. So your wife driving you around in the ambulance, and she's probably going to watch this and laugh. But when we were in Alabama, I know nurses were starting, and I think it's probably not much different nowadays, but they were starting nurses were like $15-16 an hour. We came here to Georgia, and it was like 20 or something. My wife works for the federal government now, and you can find this on the GS pay scale. Most GS nurses are 10 or 11,
that's about right.
and you're talking like $25-30 an hour for the federal government. And here in Georgia, a lot of those nurses out in town are making equal to the federal government's wage. I worked for the federal government for a while as a paramedic, and I can tell you I made more, well, about equal compared to what I made in Atlanta. But so here in Augusta, you got guys who work at Fort Gordon who are GS EMTs and paramedics making $50,000-$60,000 a year and working 40 hours a week, and you've got the local guys making $50,000 or $60,000 a year working 60-80 hours a week.
So I just I just happened to look this up because you made me think about this. So registered nurse, and this is through payscale.com. So of course, there's probably going to be other websites out there that are maybe a little bit different, but it says registered nurse, Philadelphia, PA, salary 25.01 to 41.27 an hour with a median of $31 an hour. And then if you start adding in, let's just say an RN
Night shift diff.
Yeah, night shift differential, absolutely, all that kind of stuff. I mean,
special credentials and stuff like that.
And I know, like, for example, a lot of the, and I hate to use this evil word, but a lot of the nurses in and around Philadelphia, because Philadelphia's a huge union town. Not to knock unions. I think unions do play a beneficial role in certain aspects, and I think in other aspects they can be somewhat detrimental. But I'll probably have some of the locals, knocking on my door here pretty soon. So
yeah,
I'll have to hide my location. But yeah,
he's coming to us live today from Montana, guys.
I'm gonna end up in the end zone of Giant Stadium or something like that. But no.
You and Jimmy Hoffa.
But I mean, like I said, there are benefits to that sort of thing. But I mean, when you look at, so let me just go back. Let me just, I use San Antonio as an example. Let me see what I come up with real quick. And while I'm doing that, though, education is important. There absolutely is a benefit for academia in EMS. I think it makes us when we talk about being a profession, I think it makes us a lot more professional, right? And it causes change within, or it helps to affect change within EMS. Otherwise we're basically sitting back waiting for someone else to start doing things on our behalf, and then we're really not representing ourselves, and then that's not good either.
Well, I think we should do what nursing did. So nursing a few years ago basically said, okay, look, yeah, it's fine. If you want to have an associate's degree in nursing, that's cool. If you want to be in management, this is what you've got to do. And, I think that's a kind of a way to go. You start looking at, I don't know. There's so many. It's just so hard to say. Okay, well, there's one clear cut way, and I think that's the big problem.
There is not one single solution that is going to make EMS pay significantly better. There's a lot of components to this. And I think you're absolutely right. I mean, I think to get started, in EMS to become an EMT, no, you don't need a degree
No,
to
no,
become an
no.
EMT. However, if you want to, become a paramedic, I think you absolutely should be at least. I mean, an associate's. And let's face it, an associate's degree in today's world is essentially meaningless. So, I mean, I would like to see more bachelor's programs for EMS, and then from that point on, that makes you, you know makes you eligible for management positions. It makes you eligible to maybe get an advanced practice credential as well, whether that be critical care, education. It puts you, in a higher standing, and it allows you to pursue other avenues. The whole community paramedic thing, I think, should be more in line with a degree program. And then, certainly masters and postgraduate degrees as well can have their place. For you and I right now in EMS, is it going to dramatically increase our wages at this moment in time? No, absolutely not. Is it going to be the next generation? And when I say generation, I mean the literal quantitative term of like 20 years from now. Yes, it's probably going to make a difference.
So you have an associate's degree, right, in EMS?
I have just finishing up my bachelor's degree right now, as a matter of fact.
In EMS?
Emergency management, yeah.
Okay. So I actually have an associate's in EMS. So we both have degrees in EMS or related to EMS. Now, my bachelor's degree is actually not in EMS.
Yeah.
It's in history, I know.
Yeah.
You guys make fun of me all the time. Yeah, what the hell is that going to do for you? Well, I don't know. I can tell you a lot of stuff, really cool stuff that went on a long time ago in EMS.
Well, you know how to do research. That helps.
I do. I know how to do research. But I will tell you, looking at like getting promoted within a service, it's probably helped a little bit to edge out, that extra guy. But, other than that, has it really made that much difference in my pay? I don't think so. And I mean, do you think it's made that much difference in your pay?
No. I mean, we still work in an industry where, pay is generally commensurate with experience. And what I'm doing now as far as critical care transport and stuff like that, there's no way that I would do that for $15 an hour.
And there are some places, flight medics,
I know,
that are not making much more than that.
I have some friends that were flying for a local service that shall remain nameless, but they were starting out at $19 an hour, and then you go to other places and flight medics are making 30 plus an hour, and it just depends.
Really?
Yeah,
Maybe I need to lose weight and go ride a helicopter, man.
It's not all it's cracked up to be, but
No.
it's there, and everybody throws out this magic number of $15 an hour, or 15 and some change. And I think that the petition that was basically put forward, that's been all over the news lately, I think it was 15.24 or something like that an hour. And like I said, I think that was like the magic number that I don't
actually
have
it says so in 2015, petition for 15.
The media
so
itself.
what do they come up with? So here's what it says. The United States Department of Labor's Bureau of Statistics lists the 2014 median pay of an EMT as $15.24 per hour. Then this indicates that half of the EMT assessed in the survey made an average of less than $15.24 an hour. So, yeah.
So there's a few myths out there, sort of about this whole concept of minimum wage, right? One of the concepts is, well, minimum wage was never really intended to be a living wage, and that's not true. I mean,
it's interesting because some people use those terms interchangeably, and oftentimes that is not the intent.
Right, and you're a history major, so you probably know a little bit more about this than I do. But what was it, 1938? Part of the whole New Deal legislation from Roosevelt. He enacted what was it actually called? It was like the Fair Labor Standards Act of 1938.
That's
The
the
very
one.
first minimum wage, 25 cents an hour. Okay,
Yeah.
25 cents.
He also created the Jobs Corps. I actually
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I'll just tell you, and it's kind of funny that you mentioned him. So most of my senior research was on actually FDR and the Great Depression. I am post Reconstruction. As a matter of fact, I am an Americanist, which there are Europeanists and Americanists, but I am an Americanist. But I actually studied the rhetoric of civil rights and equality since from 1895 to 1975. So I studied like speeches and how it affected the changes of roles in society and stuff. But I spent a lot of time looking at FDR, and it's funny that you mentioned that because a lot of people, whether you're a Democrat or Republican like him, simply because he created jobs for people. He put people to work. And while, yes, okay, maybe it wasn't the best the way some of the working conditions were horrible, but, I mean, hell, what are the working conditions like for us now in today's society for EMS?
So again, I don't agree 100% with what sometimes unions equate to in the long run. However, I will say that the reason why most of us have acceptable working standards today is because of what unions have done in the past.
Yeah.
It's the reason we have and I know in EMS we don't necessarily all have a 40-hour work week, but 48-hour work week for the vast majority of us, without overtime. But again, you take that 25-cent minimum wage and adjust it for inflation. Do you know how much that would be worth today?
I don't know how much.
$4.20 an hour. So, to sit that back and say, and are you going to survive on $4.20 an hour? Yeah, you can survive on $4.20 an hour. And let's face it, we live in a society now where today the difference between the top 1% and the bottom 1%, because these are all not, everybody, the top 1%, I can have the same exact iPhone 6S Plus that Tim Cook has. You know what I mean? I have access to the same things. Most people today have a car, right? You may not have the Ferrari, but a Chevette is still a car. And that's
So
my
you just said $4.20, right?
yeah, that's roughly adjusted for the CPI. Yeah.
All right. So I just did some quick math while you're naming off all this expensive crap that everybody can buy for 40 hours a week.
Mm-hmm.
After taxes, your take home is about $126.
For 40 hours or 80 hours?
40 hours a week.
So 40 hours a week. So
times 420.
Okay. So run that for an annual salary at that
All
point.
right. So before taxes, that is $8,700 a year.
Okay. So yeah.
What's minimum wage now?
Well, federal minimum I think is $9 if I'm not mistaken, and states of course have their own thing that they do. So again, if you were to just solely adjust for inflation, since
that's 18,700 and some odd dollars
at $9 an hour.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you going? Okay, so let's just say you're working one job, and we know that most people in EMS work at least two jobs. Everyone I know in EMS works at least two jobs. Maybe one full-time job, one per diem job, or one part-time job. Some people I know work two full-time jobs. I've even heard of some people that are capable to pull off three full-time jobs, and of course they're working, continuously with no downtime. And I don't recommend that.
No.
But you and I augment salaries through other ventures as well. And at the end of the day, if you end up mandating a specific salary, there's a lot of smaller services out there. There's a lot of private services out there that cannot afford that. And then people argue, well, my boss is raking in all this money. They're raking in all this money, and they're still paying me peanuts. You know what? Your boss runs the company. Your boss has a lot more responsibility for keeping that company afloat than what you do per se as the individual worker bee. And yes, he can't keep that business open without you. But at the same time, if you weren't there, believe me, there are at least 20 other people that could absolutely do that. In a lot of states, you can't throw a rock without hitting at least 10 or 15 EMTs or medics. And I'm not saying that that there's not a demand for medics and EMTs, because there absolutely is. And if you look at the Bureau labor statistics, there's absolutely demand, and that demand is on the rise. But again,
So
your boss is running the company.
Here's two questions for you. First one, I'm going to read a statement that a guy sent and made on a post. His name is Rick Murray, and thanks for your post and reply. But this is what he said. My only issue with the associate's route is how many potential paramedics will it turn away? Why would someone go to school 2 years only to still make less money than an RN? So think about that when you answer this question. Do you think it would be better to mandate higher payout from Medicare, Medicaid, insurance companies to the ambulance services to help supplement this, or do you think that that would have no effect whatsoever?
Well, I mean, demanding it and actually implementing it are two different things. I mean, we can demand all day long, and that's basically what we're doing.
Well, okay, maybe demand was okay. So the government federally mandates that yes, you have to pay ambulance services more. Do you think that there would?
I do think that ambulance services, when you look at healthcare in general, I believe ambulance services are grossly under reimbursed. And like I said from the beginning, most of the time you're taking a 40% hit right off the top. Just saying, okay, we are going to bill Medicare, Medicaid for these services. When you compare it to hospitals, for example, that are viewed sort of as professional, care levels of care, right? Their reimbursements tend to be more significantly higher. And we also run into situations too, and this was something that we ran into in other places, where when you have a BLS service and an ALS service billing for the same call, typically insurance, whoever gets the bill out first is the one that's going to get reimbursed, and the other one is not necessarily going to get reimbursed, or at least not reimbursed in a timely fashion. And so there's a lot of change that's going to have to occur. It would be nice to see greater reimbursement rates. And when you look at how many, when you look at ICD-10 codes and all that kind of stuff, there's thousands of pages, or at least hundreds of pages of billable codes in a hospital. And then you go to EMS and we have 20 pages. We're not necessarily being reimbursed, and I'm not saying we're doing all the definitive care, but we're treating all of the same types of patients. And so if we could bill maybe more specifically for things and have greater options, maybe we could see better reimbursement rates. And EMS, there are a lot of great professional organizations that are out there lobbying for us. No one knows about us. Our representatives don't know about us. They don't know what we do. They don't necessarily understand our struggle. Hell, the people that even work in EMS don't understand all of the back office stuff.
I think that it's interesting that, you say that about people not knowing us and not knowing, we're still seen as ambulance drivers.
Yeah.
And it's not just the public. It's, like you said, it's our representatives. There's even people within EMS that see us as ambulance drivers, and that is just beyond me. I sat in a class this past week, and I heard someone say that, there's some new stuff that's come out in education, and I hadn't really heard about it. And it got me to thinking about how we approach education. And I know I keep going back to education, but, from my personal standpoint, I feel like that education is the one driving force that's going to make it where we have a leg to stand on, and we go, look, we've got all these educated people. They have degrees or whatever, and you've got nurses that are doing equal or the same job, and it's like the guy said, how many people are we going to drive out of EMS? People who want to stay in EMS, who love EMS. I mean, you said you've been in it for 16 years. I've been in it for like 22 years. I have literally tons and tons of friends who started out in EMS, stayed in EMS for a while, and was tired of just getting beat up for the pay, went back to nursing school, and got out of EMS, and were excellent pre-hospital providers, but just wanted more money.
Yeah, well, so and I'm probably going to be considered a hack for using a Webster's dictionary definition, but the
No,
definition, and of course I'm paraphrasing here, the definition of a professional is someone who makes earns their living doing a specific task, right, or doing a specific job, and that's the actual definition. In medicine, the definition of a professional is, do you have a degree?
which
And
is most professions
right, exactly.
outside of
And yeah,
sports.
you're absolutely right. Yeah. But the guy that comes in and picks up my trash and my recycling every week or every other week, he's a professional, for all intents and purposes, but
And probably makes as much or more than you do.
probably does. But the point I'm certainly not trying to marginalize.
Sorry.
No, I'm trying. I'm not trying to marginalize at all what that service, because that is an essential service. But also EMS, it should be considered an essential service. And in some communities it is, but in those communities it's generally part of the fire department. In other locations, it is not necessarily viewed as an essential service. And even in the fire service, where we do 90% of the runs, compared to, and again, I'm probably exaggerating this number, I'm not using specifics, but we do the vast majority of the runs in a fire-based EMS system. Every time the tones drop, the ambulance is guaranteed to roll out that door. And we still get viewed as sort of the redheaded stepchildren of the fire service and of public safety in general. But again, education will help to legitimize us as a profession. Is it going to affect your income and my income? Probably not. Should my daughter decide to get involved in EMS? It may absolutely have an effect on her income. So I don't. We're in the business of helping other people. And I understand that everybody wants to make that living wage at this point, but we have to also view this as we are pioneers in this. If we are going to be a voice and get the start building on the public relations aspect of things, that's going to help to get us in the view of the public, in the view of our representation. And yeah, maybe 10, 15, 20 years from now, we will get these things that we're talking about today. So make sure you
mentioned
keep
the
this for
fire
posterity.
service, and I've said this before, but the fire service has essentially educated themselves out of a job. There's such it's probably one of the best education programs that has ever worked in the U.S. because we're so vigilant about fire safety and this, that, and the other. So what did they have to do? They had to start running EMS calls. Now, some of them transport and some of them don't. And that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. But here's the thing that is totally disconnected. So you have Joe Bob's Ambulance Service who's running 911 calls in one town. And you have the next town over, XYZ town, fire service is running calls. They're running the exact same calls, and there's two different pays, and the cost of living is the same. And why is that? Because there is a structure within the fire service that does not exist in EMS, and that's the thing. I think that and there's this education standards. Now, do they have to have a degree? No, but they have to have specific certifications like Firefighter 1, Firefighter 2, Operator, once you become a captain. And so if we
there's
add
definitely
in
more.
Yeah, and if you add in a structure system, and maybe that's where we need to go first. We need to add in some kind of universal structure system, which is technically already there because we have EMTs, advanced EMTs, paramedics. Maybe we should use our structure system.
Well, and I completely agree with that. And I think, obviously, like a paramedic coming directly out of school, right? obviously you need to have that entry level knowledge so that you can go out there and you can manage anything that comes your way. I mean, that's sort of the idea. Are you an expert at that? No. I mean, you and I have been doing this a long time. I don't consider myself to be an expert yet, and I've done a lot of different things. I think, so, and I'm going to use sort of my military experience here as an example. So in the Air Force, you have a Air Force Specialty Code, which is the equivalent of an MOS. And when you graduate, we base it off of, we use the apprentice basically analogy. And when you graduate, you're an apprentice level or a 3 level. Once you have completed a certain educational requirements within your career field, and you've tested on that material and demonstrated your proficiency at various tasks, then you get upgraded to a 5 level, which is a journeyman, I believe. I can't remember anymore, but yeah, journeyman. And then from there, you can become a craftsman. And then so that would be a 7 level, and then there's a 9 level, and then there's even a higher level than that for the top tier management. And within each level of training, there are specific requirements and specific tasks that one is expected to do. And again, with the core being that I can go ahead and take care of patients, and then from there I sort of move up to sort of a middle management within the 5 and 7 level ranges. And so, yeah, I think there needs to be a far greater career progression ladder type of thing that needs to be implemented in EMS. I mean, we have very clear certification levels, and that's great. And just to kind of go back to your example that you gave, another kind of reason that maybe XYZ town that you gave the example of gets paid better is because Billy Bob's ambulance service is a contracted provider. How do contracts work? Who ends up winning the contract at the end of the day?
Lowest bid.
The lowest bidder,
yeah.
And that can handle the work. And so,
and I hate to say this, I know you said earlier that the boss has got fees and this, that, and the other, but the lowest bid trickles down to the pay of the provider.
To the lowest wage.
Yeah, I mean, it goes right down to wage.
Yeah,
they're still gonna keep that percentage to buy new trucks. They're gonna keep whatever, and they're gonna keep the highest percentage. And it's a business, and I get that. But if we want to keep quality providers in the field, we have to figure out some wage. Is federally mandating that minimum wage? No, that's not the answer. That is my personal opinion.
No. Government is never the answer. Government's thing is creating a problem and then stepping in to fix it, and in doing so, generating essentially a dependence on government. Right? Government is here to do a very limited number of things, and yeah. So when it oversteps that bound, then we, it gets into this is a whole other political discussion of giving up liberty and stuff like that as well, and freedom. But and exactly where, and you exactly know exactly where I stand on that topic. Yeah. But again, there's so many things that have to change. Educational requirements need to change. We need a greater presence of academia and EMS. We need to start affecting change in reimbursement schedules and things like that as well. And yeah, I think one of the biggest issues, and this is something that I've seen in just about every EMS system that I've ever participated in, is employee retention. And money alone.
I gotta say though, man, money makes people happy. People say, "Oh well, money can't buy happiness, and money doesn't make the world go around." Well, those are two incorrect statements, because I can tell you from personal experience, and I think you know this as well, you've probably moved yourself from different services to make more money, and you know a ton of people who have done the same thing. And, Guy, I have worked for some services that I stayed there because I made more money and just hoped to hell that I didn't lose my license for the crap that was going on at the service, and left a service that was like the best place in the world to work, but I just couldn't make the money.
Well, and at the end of the day, if we were to, if the wages were to go up to, let's just say $15 an hour for EMTs, $20 for medics tomorrow, let's say those are the minimum salaries.
Yeah.
That's great. So you're already complaining that you're overworked because you're running your ass off. And now the wage is mandated to be higher. Well, that's great because I'm the boss, and you know what? I can't afford to pay all of you $15 to $20 an hour, but I can afford to pay half of you $15 to $20 an hour. And this is another myth, in this whole minimum wage argument is that increasing wages increases efficiency. Increasing efficiency is just another way of saying doing more with less people. So you're going to be doing a lot more. You're going to be working harder,
And that's not always efficient.
and well, yeah, you're right. It is. It ultimately, at least in our line of work, it doesn't become more efficient. But that's basically the definition of efficiency: is doing the most you
So,
possibly can with the least amount of resources.
and I think we're kind of still around the edge of the topic. So maybe here's three things that should work. And of course, we have to go from top down, not bottom up. So if we wanted to actually put into effect a mandated minimum wage, a federally mandated minimum wage, we would have to do it from the top down and not from the bottom up. We can't just say, okay, we're going to give a minimum wage. We have to say, okay, these insurance companies have to start reimbursing at a higher percent, not at 20%, not at 40%, not on some things and not others. They have to reimburse and reimburse more. So
Yeah, absolutely.
and the other thing is within this mandate, and this is one thing that management and EMS everywhere, if they hear this, is going to go, oh my God, this dude's an idiot. But you got to do it. I mean, we have to cut down the hours that we're mandating people to work so that they can be more efficient, so that they can provide higher levels of care, because there's studies out there that's already proved that after about 12 hours, you're done. You shouldn't be working 24-hour shifts. Well, that requires you to hire more people to work the hours, but you're paying $20 an hour either way. So whether you've got two people working it or one person working that 24 hours, you make people happier, you pay them more money, you get better reimbursements. I think it's a top-down system, and I think we have to add in things like hours, we have to add in wage, but the big thing is you have to start at the top with reimbursements. And I think that's where it needs to go. And
another thing that we need to do, we kind of touched on this earlier, is we need the public relations. We need the public buy-in for this. There are not enough EMTs and paramedics in this country to make up a majority, and so the only way that it's not threatening. I've been in communities where they're like, well, if you don't authorize this bond, or if you don't authorize this tax increase, you're going to be deprived of these services and stuff like that. No, not threatening people, but helping people understand what it is that we do and why our services are essential to the community. Because again, this money isn't just magically again, I'm trying to keep this as apolitical as possible, but I have no idea where Bernie Sanders thinks he's going to get all this freaking money and that he's always talking about. And the reality of it is, we are going to have to raise taxes, maybe not for the bottom 1%. But not entirely from the top 1% either. There's a lot of poor communities where the top 1% in the community is making average salary for the national average, and so someone has to pay for it.
All right. So since you threw the number out, and this is from NAEMT. And they got their source is the Bureau of Labor and Statistics. Last one it was done was 2012, 2013. Okay. This is when this was the last time this was done. So number of ambulance services, and this is U.S., 15,276. Number of ground vehicles, 48,384. Number of EMS personnel, 840,669.
Yeah, so again,
what is the population of the U.S.?
Like 330 million people. We'll just say 330 million.
So statistically speaking,
and I'm not a mathematician. I'll let you do the math.
But statistically speaking, ambulances to population, personnel to population, there is like this just crazy. I'm not even going to try to do the math in my head. I probably could, but statistically speaking, there is such a large mismatch. We have got to get folks' butts in the seats.
Well, and if you speaking of the Department of Labor, I mean, if you look at employment, like demand for EMTs and paramedics by 2024 is expected to go up by like 58,500 jobs. So in the next 8 years, we're expected to basically hire 58,000, 59,000 people. And I think that we will see that, and I think we're going to have a lot of people getting into EMS related fields because there's a lot of people out there that can't do anything with their college degree right now, that are going to have to maybe resort to this sort of thing. But this is a multifaceted issue. It needs to be addressed from multiple angles. And it's not going to happen overnight. It's probably not going to happen for those of us that are halfway through our career, give or take a few years. It is probably not necessarily going to be. We are not going to be significantly impacted by the changes that are going to occur before we retire, or again, at least move on to something else because we're too old and crusty to get in and out of the truck.
Yeah.
So every day I go to work, I feel more and more like Danny Glover in Lethal Weapon, and I'm just thinking I'm getting too old for this, Riggs, because that's and so I know that I'm not going to be able to stay on the street forever, but because I know that I can sort of plan ahead and I can sort of alter my career goals to include management, education, and so on and so forth. So, yeah, man.
So, your 3 points for or against minimum wage. Go. 3 points. Short, down and dirty, Reader's Digest.
So I don't think that minimum wage is necessarily beneficial to, or a higher mandated minimum wage is necessarily beneficial to the economy. I absolutely think that we need to help legitimize the professional aspects of EMS by encouraging academia within our ranks. And we also need to push for further, not only public relations, but we also need to push for greater reimbursement. I think that's kind of where I stand on this.
All right. Well, cool. Well, hey, man, thanks for being on the show this week. Enjoyed having you, man.
Yeah, man. It's been a pleasure, as always.
All right.
Yeah. Take care of yourself. Be safe out there, all right?
All right, man. Well, stick around. Maybe me and you can chat a little bit after the show here. But, guys, this is all the time we have for this week. Don't forget to subscribe on our YouTube channel there. Like and share us on Facebook and Twitter. You can also find us on mediclifetv.com to get the latest information and updates. Hey, if you want to be that well-informed lifer, don't forget to get on our lifers list. You can sign up on the contact page. Guys, thanks for watching another episode of Medic Life. Y'all stay safe out there.